By the end of 2019, Levan had risen to the top of the sport, proving he can defeat anyone in his path. But across the ocean, there were still challengers waiting. The first one of them was Dave Chaffee. Chaffee is one of the strongest North American arm wrestlers ever. He has incredible side pressure and a very explosive hit. If there was anyone who could test Levan's pure force output, then it was him. They faced off on September 5th, 2021 in Kiev. Here's what happened next. In the first round, Dave tried to post up and top rope, but he got completely contained by Levan's fingers. Levan dragged back, then added the rise and pronation to finish off the round. In other rounds, Dave tried to slip, but Levan was always able to contain him with his fingers. On the rare occasion that Dave managed to slip, he usually elbow fouled in the process. It was becoming clear that nobody could even win a round against Levan Saginashvili. He was now in a league of his own. Or was he? There was one huge question unanswered. On the western side, Devon Larratt, fresh of wins against Michael Todd and John Brzenk, was supposedly in the best form of his life, and stood as the holder of the Arm Wrestling Legacy Hammer, which is an award that belongs to the current strongest arm wrestler on the planet. Levan was ready to challenge that title. So on June 25th, 2022, Levan Saginashvili and Devon Larratt would meet on the table in one of the most anticipated matches of all time. Before the go even happened, Devon was already trying to win the mental game and gain all of the possible advantages. Levan then responded to this with a surge. And you can almost see the fear creep into Devon's soul. The referee shouts go, and Levan puts a massive surge to the side. And at first it looks like a clean flash pin. But if we slow it down, you'll notice something interesting. And it's that Devon's pronation actually forced Levan's wrist to buckle, even if it was just a bit. There's a tiny stop just above the pad for a few seconds. Levan seems confident after his win in the first round. But Devon also seems confident, because he knows that if the match stops, he will get even. But then a catastrophe strikes. In the second round, Devon, with his back pressure and pronation already maxed out, gets completely ripped open by Levan's drive, and his bicep gets torn. For all the next rounds, there was simply nothing he could do. With this, Levan secured his spot as the undisputed best and strongest arm wrestler. But there were still some challengers. The Italian gladiator Ermes Gasparini. Ermes was on a tear at East vs West, crushing Matt Mass, Gennady Kvitvina and Arif Artun. He then faced Dave Chaffee, and Dave Chaffee at the time was seen as a gatekeeper for the match with Levan. So here's how the match went. Upon the go, Dave hit sideways, but Ermes applied a ton of back pressure and comfortably held Dave on the B side. And then he countered, fully cracking Dave's hand and putting massive surges to the side, rising and pinning Dave.
The wrist is getting totally stretched out. Ermes Gasparini in good position, putting a wear and tear on Dave Chaffee. And finishes the match on the first round.
He repeated a similar tactic on the second and third round, which earned him the shot at Levan. Now if he actually wanted to do something, he would have to show up at his best. And oh boy, did he do that. In the first round, Levan and Ermes evenly slipped, something that was already seen as quite impressive. In the strap, Levan drives sideways, but Ermes stops him a few centimeters above the pin pad. However, Levan then recollects and pins Ermes. Second round, Levan drives again, Ermes stops it. Levan then recollects, then he stares Ermes into the eyes and pins him again. At this point, it seems like all hope is lost. Levan seems to have taken control and there is nothing that could be done. And that's why what happened next was absolutely unbelievable.
Ermes is lopping down as much as he could. And almost buckles it down. Gets position, defends. Levan stands up. Ermes is still defending. We are in the match!
He's going for the press!
He's going for the press! He got almost pulled back. Ermes is still.
On the third round, Levan drives for the pin. Ermes gets a stop. Levan recollects, but this time Ermes stops Levan's drive again. Levan keeps surging, but every time, Ermes stops at millimeters above the pin pad. Ermes starts losing the wrist, so he starts to transition into the dead wrist press, and Levan is stuck in a position where he has literally all of the fundamentals, but he is unable to finish. The match is in a stalemate, and then an elbow foul happens for Ermes. On the restart, Ermes stops Levan again and tries getting his shoulder behind him. He keeps surging, and this time Levan gets an elbow foul. Another restart happens, and everyone is holding their breaths in anticipation. However, this time, Levan drives even harder than before and pins Ermes, which is very relieving for him. On the fourth round, the same story happens. Ermes simply cannot stop Levan's first drive. This secures Levan the victory, but King of the Table rules state that the athletes must pull for all 6 rounds. The 5th round is next. Everyone thinks that it's probably over. Levan will simply repeat what he did the last time. But this time, like in the 3rd round, Ermes stops Levan, and again he loses his wrist and puts his shoulder behind his arm. He starts rocking Levan's arm back and forth, blocking Levan's transition to a press. Ermes keeps getting better and better position. Levan then tries putting in a huge surge, but he completely opens himself up, first time in the match being on B side. Ermes then gets the shoulder behind his arm. He gets on the offensive. However, before he can do anything, Levan elbow fouls. On the restart, the same story happens. Ermes again gets his shoulder behind his arm, putting Levan on the defensive. But then another elbow foul occurs. After this round, Levan and Ermes both sit down, completely exhausted. Especially Levan doesn't feel great. And over time, it seems like he is unable to keep going. Levan cannot pull anymore. He has to get oxygen, and he forfeits. This earns Ermes 2 rounds, and it's the first time we have seen a genuine crack in Levan's armor. Before, we have only maybe seen his wrist cracking back for a few seconds, but this is the first time we have truly seen him vulnerable. Even though Levan had all of the fundamentals, he simply was not able to finish. Again, questions unanswered. Even though Levan was still stronger, there are still questions if there is someone who can take an advantage of one of his few weaknesses. And the next man that was about to try was Devon Larratt, again, as we have talked about before.